All right, welcome back to the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast. It is Tuesday night. We are talking MLB for Wednesday, April 3rd. Oh my gosh, these days are just running together, dude.
Yeah,
NBA,
man.
PGA, Masters. Wow, there's just so much going on. So we're talking 4/13 Wednesday MLB slate. I'm here with Jay as always. Jay, what's going on?
Just hanging out, just mentally preparing myself for the last day of NBA tomorrow. Definitely pretty stoked to devote all my time to MLB coming up and
Right.
ramp up the action a little bit and get into the full swing of things. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to know what day it is anymore with how busy it's been.
Yeah, man, it's been insane. I mean, it's been a good insane. Having the Masters and MLB and NBA, like it's a great time to be a sports fan. For
Oh,
sure.
yeah, definitely.
But having to not having to, that sounds bad. Getting to do breakdowns and podcasts for all these different sports is everything kind of runs together. I'll play in MLB slate and try to pick like Westbrook, and I'm like, oh, wrong sport.
Yeah, man. I did an NBA pod earlier, and I was going to bring up David Ortiz or something on the NBA pod. I don't even know what's going on anymore.
Yeah, I mean he's a great play.
He would be,
or in NBA. Yeah,
he would have been a pretty good play in NBA tonight for sure. I think it's a sleeper play for sure in tournaments.
Yeah. So we're getting regular with these podcasts. Obviously, we're again going to do the Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah. So 4 times a week, and we are going to go over like the main slate, so the 7 p.m. slates. We had early slates, the 1-2 o'clock games, and those are still going to go on. They still have some early games. John will hit those in his written breakdowns. Definitely check out those. Those are really good. But these podcasts are going to be going over the main slate, the 7 p.m. one. So those are the ones we're going to go over. Okay, let's jump into it, Jay. The first segment that we always do is start out talking about Vegas lines. So just kind of quickly, we'll run through. It is important, we do these podcasts, and even if we did them, right up at game time, these things move so often that it just updates.
Yeah, they do.
So we'll give you lines, and it'll probably be pretty close, but obviously, make sure to just constantly check them and update them as you set your lineups. So the high teams, obviously no surprise, since the Rockies are playing at home. Colorado and San Francisco are projected for 5.8 runs. Boston's the next highest at over a full run less at 4.7. The low teams right now are Atlanta, Milwaukee at 3.3, Detroit, Arizona are both 3.4. So Jay, this is our first pod actually together with the Rockies at home.
It's a big day. It's a big event. This is like what MLB DFS revolves around is Coors Field. So I think Vegas starts and ends with Coors when they have a home series. So I think it's important to be very aware of that. And look at the totals right now. It's 11.5, I think, which is 2.5 more runs than the next highest total game. So they did raise the fences a little bit, but I think it's only a 5 to 7% home run estimated decrease. So we'll kind of see as the season goes on, how significant that is. But I think looking at this slate overall and just comparing it to Coors Field, you definitely got to kind of pick your play and your spots here of what to do with Coors Field. I think generally I don't like fading the game entirely in cash if there are two, average pitchers on the mound, especially from the Rockies side here. But I think Vegas lines are indicative of ownership in tournaments as well. So you kind of see this total and assume that a lot of these guys are going to be highly owned. So I think that's how we can kind of use Vegas to get a gauge on who to fade and who to play to be contrarian in tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just the most debated thing in MLB DFS is that I know I've talked to some people who just wish that it just was eliminated from the slate. Like they're just the Rockies at home just was a different slate. You could play a slate with that game not even on it. So people love it or hate it, and I get it. I mean, it just really the fact that there are 2.5 runs more than any other game, it just complicates things. We talked, Colin Davey, our PGA guy, talked about Vegas lines in PGA, and I think it's is fairly comparable. He talked about how there's just such a direct one-to-one correlation between pricing and Vegas odds for PGA that it really complicates things because you can't get any value, but you have to address it when you make your lineups. And MLB is not like that in general, but it is kind of that whole issue of you can't ignore it, but you're also probably not really getting a super value on it either in terms of pricing because of salary or ownership. So it really is the toughest thing. Yeah, what do you do with Coors? And I'm not saying that there's an easy answer that I can give you in 2 sentences, but it's definitely the thing that you have to kind of decide and take a stance on every night when they're playing it at home.
Yeah, you really do. And back in the day, I think a few years ago, I would kind of take days off sometimes that the Rockies would play at home just because I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't like the strategy fading Coors Field. There weren't enough options that I liked, so I just took the day off because I didn't really want to just go chalk and use all the Rockies guys. But I think with pricing where it is right now in the industry, I think there are some interesting decisions to make, and you got to think it's the same for everybody. It's the same for everyone trying to fit Arenado in their lineup. It's difficult. You can't really pair a stack with this game and get top price pitchers as well. So it's a challenge for everyone. That's kind of the thing you always got to remember. If it's hard for you, it's going to be hard for everyone. You should have to prepare more in advance.
Yeah, and there's still edges to be had, whether it's, just finding value in different ways or creating a unique lineup independently of, just trying to get around that and still create a unique lineup. And we'll get into a couple of those ways, I think, during the course of this podcast. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting dilemma to face when the Rockies are at home. Okay, let's move on to the next segment. It's going to be pitchers. So we're going to, as usual, give 2 intriguing pitchers apiece and then 1 to fade. So Jay, I'll let you start off. Give me your 2 intriguing pitchers.
All right, cool. Right before I get into my intriguing, I just want to say, Strasburg, I think, is a pretty easy cash play. Facing the Braves, don't need to really go into it too much. I think it's a similar situation with Scherzer from the other day facing the Braves, heavily owned in all formats. So while I do love him in cash, I'm not as high on him in tournaments, especially if you want to get a piece of Coors Field. So the first kind of contrarian pitcher that you're going to need to fit some of these high-priced batters, I'm looking at Carlos Rodon. He has the 4th highest K per 9 on the slate. I definitely like having exposure to a guy with this kind of upside. And I know it's really early in the season, but looking at the Twins in a small sample size, they do lead the league in strikeout percentage as a team. They're absolutely not hitting the ball well at all. I think it's time, you can take advantage of this fact with a boom or bust kind of strikeout type pitcher in Rodon. So I'm definitely going to be high on exposure with him. And then another guy I'm looking at is Jared Eichhoff. He closed last season actually with 2 back-to-back 10 strikeout starts, which was obviously very promising and puts himself on the radar for DFS purposes for sure. He finished with a respectable K per 9, kind of proved that he has a high ceiling as well. And these are things you obviously want to target here. The Padres had the 4th highest strikeout rate of any team last season. That's who Eichhoff is facing. People might look at their recent games, the Padres, and see they scored 16 and 13 runs in back-to-back games, but that's obviously due to Coors Field where they were playing. So I think you can look back before that and see that they didn't score a single run in 3 games against the Dodgers. So at an affordable $6,600 on FanDuel for Eichhoff, I think it's pretty cheap. He definitely allows you that salary to pay up for bats and gain exposure to Coors Field.
Yeah, I like those. I do like him better on FanDuel for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
A little priced up on DraftKings.
Yeah, I'd actually only recommend him on FanDuel.
Yeah. I do think there's a guy kind of in that same range on DraftKings that I like a little bit better, Colin Ray. Really, I chose him because it's kind of hard to find a guy in the lower range if you want to fit some of these Rockies, Giants batters. You're going to have to. I mean, you could get up to a Strasburg or Carrasco or one of these elite pitchers, but you're going to have to find probably a lower tier pitcher in order to get those guys. And I think Ray is the guy on DraftKings potentially. He's facing the Phillies, who have the 2nd highest strikeout per at-bat rate in the slate, and the 2nd lowest WOBA. Obviously, that's good at just 267. He doesn't have the highest strikeout rate himself. He is not a great whip guy. I don't think he's an amazing pitcher. This is really just strictly it's a decent matchup, and he's like okay, fairly priced. He's 7K on DraftKings, and I don't love him, but if you're going to try to get these guys, you have to make concessions somewhere, and he's the guy that I think I'm most willing to make concessions for. So I think he's an interesting play if you want to get down from those top guys. The next guy I like is Carlos Carrasco. He's the highest price starting pitcher on DraftKings, even more than Strasburg. He's actually 600 more than Strasburg, who is facing the Braves. So I love him because I think he's going to be super low owned, especially in tournaments, probably in cash too, because people are going to say, okay, I can either take Carrasco for $600 more, or I can get Strasburg versus the Braves, and it's kind of a no-brainer. Strasburg arguably has just as good of a matchup, if not better, plus he's cheaper. I actually think that Strasburg's matchup isn't that amazing for kind of what you might look for in a tournament, and Carrasco could actually outscore him. We're obviously looking for strikeouts in tournament. Yep. Braves don't really whiff that often, and Carrasco has just as much K upside facing a team that does whiff a little bit more. So I think for all of those reasons, the fact that you could probably get a better game, and you're going to get a lot lower ownership because I think people are going to lean Strasburg. I think Carrasco is the tournament play for me, especially on DraftKings because of that price.
Yeah,
cool.
Definitely agree with that for sure. Nailed it. Yeah, my fade of the slate is actually going to be Mike Leake. I think a lot of people kind of look at the money line of this game and see the Cards are minus 160 to win. Milwaukee's only projected to score 3.3 runs. So I think a lot of people kind of take chances on the Leake, kind of a safe play. But the problem is he's just not a strikeout pitcher at all. And we kind of need to rely on strikeouts when selecting pitchers. It's so valuable. So, that's where all the value is in pitching. You can't predict wins as well. Strikeout rate is just huge. So Leake's not there. So I'm going to comfortably fade Leake. Even, if he goes 6 scoreless innings and gets the win, I'm not really too concerned about that. I don't think his ceiling is high enough for me.
Yeah, I agree. I need some strikeout potential in a guy. My fade is going to be a little obvious. I kind of mentioned it in the Carrasco. Strasburg. I think you're right. He's an elite cash play. It's going to be high owned, but for the reasons I hinted at above, he's going to be really high owned. People are going to choose him in favor of Carrasco because of the savings. Braves just have a low strikeout rate as a team. And I think that's kind of a sneaky thing that people don't necessarily check. So people think that he's going to just go out and strike out, 9 or 10 guys, whereas the Braves, kind of limit his upside a little bit. So it's hard to fade a guy like Strauss, especially against the Braves, who just can't hit it all, but they also just don't strike out that much. So I think he's going to have a solid game, but I think there might be ways to get more upside in your lineup. So, cool. Let's move on. Let's go to our next segment, which is going to be batters. We're going to go over 2 intriguing batters, and then we'll hit value batters after that. So I'll let you go first, Jay. Give me the 2 batters that are sticking out to you.
The first one I got isn't very surprising. I don't need to go too much into it, but Chris Davis going against a righty again. A 406 WOBA against righty, a 360 ISO against righties. Same price on DraftKings as Brandon Belt, and just 100 more on FanDuel. I think it's a nice pivot for people trying to just load up on that Giants-Rockies game. Maybe get a piece of Belt. You can get Chris Davis and kind of fade that aspect of the game. A nice little pivot there. So, I think Joe Kelly, I like targeting him. He looked really bad in his first start. He struggled a lot, couldn't find his command. If he's struggling to locate his pitches again, could rely on his fastball a little bit more, and that's obviously what Crush makes pitchers pay for, is when they throw the fastball. So I think Kelly's mechanics were a little bit off, and we'll see if he corrects them. But playing into Chris Davis, I don't mind stacking the Orioles at all either. And then the second hitter I like a lot, and this is more of a stronger play on DraftKings. His bargain rating's 81%, but Carlos Gonzalez is just underpriced compared to other guys on DraftKings. So he has a lot of things going for him. Rockies are projected to score 5.7 runs currently. I think you definitely need some exposure to this game in cash. You could argue whether to fade it or not in tournaments, but I think you definitely want a piece of the 11.5 total in cash. One of the highest WOBA differentials on the slate for Cargo facing righties. 413 WOBA he has against righties. So a lot of these hitters are priced up, so it's kind of difficult to fit. So I think you got to pick your spots, and I think Cargo is one of them to get exposure to this game.
Yeah, I like those calls a lot. Yeah, I'm glad we do have a value batters segment of this podcast because I'm about to mention two really high-priced guys.
Right.
And if we didn't have that, I would feel bad because it's obviously hard to fit these guys in.
Yep.
My two guys, the first one I'll start off with is another Rocky. Arenado is a guy I'm looking at. So the reason I'm mentioning him is because I played the DraftKings and FanDuel slates tonight. Obviously, they're playing at Colorado, and they're kind of similarly priced, that being really, really pricey. And Arenado in the big FanDuel tournament, the one with the $2 thousands of people. So I try to get a good sample size here. Arenado is only 5% owned. And I think what the reason is that people found some lower priced guys like maybe a Nick Hundley or someone that is in the lower sort of 3K-ish range on DraftKings. And they thought, okay, I want to get a great pitcher like Thor tonight, who obviously went off and played great. And I also want to get exposure to this game. So I think maybe the highest upside play is to take the great pitcher and then try to get exposure with the cheaper price guys from this game, which eventually led guys like Cargo and Arenado to be just really low owned. Obviously, these guys have elite upside really in any game because of their talent and batting power, but especially at Coors. So if I'm going to be able to get a talent like Arenado and I'm going to be able to get him at 5% owned, then I think that really changes how we should construct our rosters, especially in tournaments. And it's going to take me down to maybe a Ray guy in the 7K-ish range where I don't mind loading up on bats. I love paying up for pitchers, but if the market's going to adjust that much that way, then I don't mind going cheaper and taking Arenado at a 5%. Not saying he's going to be 5% tomorrow, but it was just kind of striking to me, and definitely something that I wanted to mention for sure. The next guy that I wanted to mention is Anthony Rizzo for the Cubs. And the reason I love him actually is probably a bad reason, but I think it makes sense, at least in my head. He's really, really expensive. He's 5.2 on DraftKings. He's even more expensive than all these guys in the Giants-Rockies game, which I think even, we talk about Arenado not being high owned because of his price. Rizzo is going to especially low owned because he's really high priced, even more so than those guys, and he's not playing in that game. But he's in such a great spot. I mean, he has great numbers versus righty. 391 WOBA, 268 ISO. Alfredo Simon's allowing 1.196 home runs per 9. Just a great matchup here, and he's really expensive, which means I think his ownership is going to be low. So if you can fit him in your lineup and feel good about it, I think he is home run potential, and you can get him really low ownership, and he could be a great play.
Sure.
Let's get some FanDuel value batters.
Yeah, good old FanDuel underpriced hitters. So starting off, I think you can't really ignore Michael Taylor a lot right now. He's just too cheap on FanDuel, just $2,400. Great way to save salary. Probably will be super chalky, but there's good reason he's hitting leadoff for the Nationals for injured Ben Revere. He's in a prime spot against the Braves. Horrible pitching, just absolutely terrible this season. So the Nationals are projected to score 4.6 runs right now. So kind of getting a leadoff hitter at 2,400 allows enough flexibility in roster construction to kind of pay up for some of these big time hitters or go Strasburg and cash, for example. And then another guy I don't like naming, Jeremy Hazelbaker. I hate being the guy to take a hitter just because he's hotter than Derek Zoolander right now, just crushing the ball right now. But instead of kind of looking at his limited sample size, which I don't generally like to do, we can look at what he brings to the table, which is he has great speed, exceptional speed, solid power as well. He's been hitting in the 2-hole. Matheny loves putting him in the 2-hole, and he's just 2,300. So it's a lot of positives, enough to kind of get him some exposure in cash games if you want. I think he has great stolen base upside. Obviously, he's going to regress. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's out of the league in a month. But while he's hitting the 2-hole right now, and this is obviously only if he's hitting the 2-hole, I don't really like him if he moves down in the order. But I like the fact that he's hitting second. I'm fine taking that risk in cash games. For the salary, that he saves just on the slate in general, I think it's fine. But all that said, I probably wouldn't continue to kind of ride him in tournaments because he'll definitely likely fall off once pitchers kind of figure him out.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, you're right. Any guy that's that cheap in the second spot batting order, yeah,
not that good. But he does have some good peripheral. I mean, he's really fast.
Yeah, speaking of fast and fairly decent peripherals, I'll get to mine. So DK value plays. First guy is Raj Davis. Not going great this year so far, but his advanced stats are okay. He's been crushing the ball lately. He just hasn't really translated. He has a 57% hard hit rate this season, which is up 29% from his last year average. It just really hasn't been translating. I would look at that and say that he's probably due for some regression. He is getting older, I get it, but he still has good career and even year-long splits against lefties. He got 215 ISO and 443 slugging versus lefties. We're assuming that he's been kind of doing this platoon where he gets the spot at the first batting order spot against lefties, and they're facing Smiley next.
They play a lefty. They play a lefty like every game.
Every game. It's been so weird. Yeah, they've just been facing so many lefties.
He's got to do something. But yeah, everything's there for him to kind of.
Yeah, to regress. Yeah, and he's so cheap, and his salary kind of accounts for his struggles. But kind of looking at his advanced stats, and he has so much upside with his career and even yearly stats, and he also is a stolen base upside. That's not saying a whole lot. I mean, we know that he's a fast dude, and he's also going against Hank Conger, who we looked at this stat.
The stat of the lifetime for me.
This isn't even the stat of the day. It's stat of the world. Yeah, it was. What was it? Conger had 49 guys run on him last year, and he threw out one guy.
I think it was more. I think it was like 56. He threw out one of 56 guys. I looked at it for like 30 minutes, just being like, that can't be real. This will, I don't think it'll deter me from getting some Raj exposure if Conger doesn't draw the start. I am expecting him to, but there's still like a 40% chance he doesn't. But if he does, then yeah, you kind of want a piece of a leadoff fast runner against a guy who throws out 1 out of 58 guys in the entire season. So,
1 out of 58 is not a great not a great percentage.
Yeah. That's what I'm going for my stack calls. If I can get 1 out of 58, I feel pretty good.
I like it. Quickly, one more stat on Davis. Smiley allows so many home runs, more than any other pitcher on the slate, like 1.8 home runs per 9. Just they bomb against him, and Davis has power potential and so on.
Yeah, he does
against Conger, so maybe a tournament play, but could work out. The other guy, quickly before we move on, is Colby Rasmus. He's just so cheap on DK, and they won't budge. His price, for whatever reason, he's got 96% bargain rating. He's got obviously a lot of power potential. He's batting 4th for Houston, or at least projected to bat 4th. We would assume that he would continue to bat there. And they're projected to score 4.2 runs, which is very solid, obviously. He's got a 260 ISO and 498 slugging against righties, hard hit rate of 43%, which is crazy elite. And for some reason, he's like in the mid to low 3K range, and they just won't move him on DK. I have no clue why. So really until the ownership, and for whatever reason, until they bump him up, he's probably just going to continue to be on my list of value bats on DK. But yeah, I think he's a great play. Let's move on, Jay. Let's get to stacks. Give me a stack of the day you like.
Yeah, stack of the day I'm looking at is the Cubs. We kind of touched up on Alfredo Simon. Gives up a healthy amount of home runs, a healthy amount of walks. Can definitely get in trouble often. He had a 35% dud rate last year, which is something I definitely like to look at when kind of targeting a team to stack against a pitcher, seeing how often they erupt. So I think with the makeup Simon has, home runs and walks, I like targeting the Cubs in tournaments. They strike out a lot. They have a high strikeout rate. I think they led the league last year, but they also hit the 6th most home runs against righties last year. So the lineup with a lot of pop. I like the lefties in the order. I'm looking at Dexter Fowler, Hayward, Rizzo, and Montero especially. So kind of exposure to all those lefties I'm liking a lot on the slate.
Yeah, I like that call a lot. Obviously,
Rizzo.
I said I loved Rizzo, so yeah, I like that stack a lot. The stack for me that I like is the Dodgers. I really like their 2 through 6 spot. Obviously, on DraftKings, you can get the 5 guys in your lineup. At least I would assume was going to bat first. I'm not really sure why he's still batting first for them. It's whatever. But that 2 through 6 spot, which we would assume it would be Seager, who's a monster, Turner, Adrian Gonzalez, Puig, and Jock. I would assume to be their 2 through 6 guys. All great hitters, all with positive splits against righties. They have a fairly underrated park factor rating in our models. It's about 50, which on most days is pretty good. Obviously, compared to like the nearly 100 for all of the Rockies Giants batters, it's nowhere close. But if you were going to be team fade that game, I think the Dodgers are kind of an interesting target to look at. They obviously have the elite power guys I talked about, and they're projected to score 4.2 runs, which like the Astros, I said, it is a pretty decent number. And really the interesting thing to me is that they're the only game that's really late. They're the 10:30 game. And Jonathan Bales, co-founder of FantasyLabs, you guys know him, has written a lot of books on MLB. And one of his books, I think it was a couple books ago, he actually got some ownership data that said that guys in, especially stacks in the late games, for whatever reason, I think maybe it was people just didn't have lineups. And they're just kind of scared to lock in guys that, and this was even on DraftKings with late swap available to them. It's just guys that, wanted to set their lineups and go do whatever. Anyway, so the guys in the 10:30 games or the West Coast games are just really, really low owned compared to what we'd expect them to be, just kind of based on their Vegas rating and other things. So the Dodger stack is good for the hitters. It's good because of the Vegas rating, and I think it's going to be really low owned. So that's kind of my second day for those reasons.
Definitely. It's a good one. It's real good.
Cool. Give me a stat, Jay. Stat of the day.
Yeah, stat that stood out to me, I was just kind of looking at hard hit percentage data and noticed teammates Persson, Tucker, and Tyler White just smashing the F out of the ball this entire season.
Hard, yeah.
It's stupid. Tucker's hard hit percentage is 88% this season, and White's is 57%. So, obviously this is a tiny sample size, so it's nothing immediate to me to look at, but it is something for me to monitor. My main man, Evan Gattis, got reactivated today, so Tucker's kind of out right now. Gattis is in the DH, so it puts a damper on Tucker. But, Tyler White's hitting well in the 5th hole, so he's a guy I'm definitely looking at. And then, when El Oso Blanco gets a day off, I'm definitely looking to go back to Tucker. So I think it's something I just want to monitor the hard hit percentage of some of these guys who are raking.
Yeah, they're loaded, dude. But the fact that those guys can't even get, everyday lineup spots, and even when they play, Tucker's hitting 8th.
I know, it's crazy. I
understand they got Correa, they got Springer, they got all these loaded guys. They're great on an up and coming team for sure. My side of the day is batters at Coors are still 1.75 points above salary based expectations in the last year, which I think is interesting because people think that because of the Vegas odds and just how much DraftKings hikes their salary, that they're really not a value. And in fact, they're probably not a value. But actually, the data says that's just not true. Even though they hiked their salaries up, which is quite a bit, as kind of talked with Cargo and Arenado and all these guys, they're still exceeding value. And I actually wanted to look at and make sure that was the case for these 5K batters. So I did a trend and looked at 5K plus batters, so any batters that are $5,000 on DraftKings or more, and their plus minus actually bumps up even more to 2.25. So they've exceeded their value by 2 and 2.5 points per game. So I think that's actually kind of useful because people think that you kind of have to have exposure, but you're losing value. But I think that you actually still have a lot of value, which means that I think it makes a lot of sense to try to get as many of these guys into cash games as allows. Obviously, trying to get pitchers in and stuff makes it complicated. But I think these guys are still undervalued.
Yeah, they definitely are. That ballpark pops, man.
It does. Give me a bold call.
All right, my bold call is definitely interesting on this slate. Given that tomorrow's the last day of NBA, I wanted to kind of tie the two together. Last day of regular season, I should say. Us D-gens are still going to play the playoffs. But my bold call is that there are going to be more players ruled out in the NBA slate tomorrow than the home runs hit on this MLB slate tomorrow.
Wow.
So I'm looking to take some little jelly bean action. I think it's a pretty close call, I think. When I broke it down in my head for 3 seconds, at least.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great call. That's a bold one considering we have the Rockies.
It's very bold. It's incredibly bold. Yeah. So
we got 14 or 15 games in the NBA.
14.
14. Yeah.
And we had a lot of players going to sit. Yeah.
No, this is great. I wish I wish Pinnacle or Bovada actually released some odds on this.
Yeah, they're just behind, man. They're behind.
I know. Yeah. Well, you can release your odds and we'll take your jelly bean action.
Definitely. I'm looking hard. What do you guys both call?
Charlie Blackmon, not a great part of the Rockies offense so far. In fact, he's been pretty awful. But I'm predicting a home run and a stolen base. I would like to say that his peripherals, like Davis, are good, that his hard hit rate is up, and all of this stuff is up, but it's actually way down. So I'm not sure if that's indicative of
it's early. Yeah.
I don't know what that means. It could be worrisome. It could be a reason to keep on fading him until that trends back up. I'm just thinking that it might trend back up. So he's got stolen base upside and playing obviously in a good game. So that's my bold call. Home run, stolen base for Blackmon. Put it on the board. Let's do it.
Yeah, I like Blackmon a lot in the spot too. So I'll be there with you. I just hope he doesn't hit that home run to beat the over of NBA injuries.
Wow, so, lose all your jelly beans.
Yeah, man. It's gonna be a sweat though.
I like it. Cool. We will end it there, Jay. Thanks for all of your takes, NBA and MLB related. Thanks for all your NBA coverage this year. I know people appreciated it, and I hope you survive tomorrow with all these MLB and NBA games. And then you're around to pod with me afterwards. Yeah,
I'll definitely be a game time decision for pods in the next week because tomorrow is going to be just so brutal. We got a little taste of it tonight with another dirty Reggie Jackson.
With Reggie.
It's nuts how eerie it is that they do it right at lineup lock.
All right, so I will say that you guys. So we put out a news blurb that he might rest like 10 minutes before lock. And we pushed it out as a push notification just so people could hey, if you want to take the chance, fine. If you don't want to, and there were some people that tweeted back at us and said thank you for at least pushing that out because people who didn't do anything about it obviously got the 0 in their lineup. But so there's only so much we can do. We report the news the moment.
We have no agenda. It's like
you're not sitting on Reggie Jackson news.
I'm not sitting on a stockpile of fade Reggie Jackson in tournaments, and I'm sitting there like, oh, this is perfect. Like, no, it doesn't work like that.
These guys in the second to last day of NBA.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's crazy. NBA, it's the madness is coming to an end. We can move on to smooth MLB. Hopefully the rain dies down. It's been better as of late, so we're on a good road ahead. Yeah, I think we're about to get into our MLB groove for sure. Definitely. Cool. All right, thanks for listening, everyone. Good luck tomorrow. Hopefully you had some good luck in the sweet spot tonight. We had some big contests on DraftKings, so hopefully that worked out. But good luck tomorrow, and we'll talk to you guys for the Thursday pod. Yep. Good luck, guys.